I seriously believe that India is the leader of de-dollarization. And it makes sense with the kind of moves that we have seen from 2016 onwards. I think 2018 was the first time when India opened its cards and asked China, because India understood that China is going to be the main player if we want to have some concrete kind of a de-dollarization. So it opened its cards to China and offered them trade in national currencies. But China in 2018 rejected that. Uh, I see it. I see that rejection particularly because the Chinese Communist Party had back then had very strong ties with the US deep state in terms of this entire manufacturing and supply chain and whatnot. Um, but at that point in time, in 2018, UAE, Iran, and Russia, all three agreed to this Indian offer, right? So I believe India took the lead. While it is very obvious that any country who would want to go towards the path of de-dollarization, they need to accumulate gold and silver as precious metals, which China, Russia, and India have been doing. From 2015-16 onwards on a good scale in a decent amount. But the second move was shifting the trade to national currencies, shifting bilateral trade to national currencies. I think this is where, Russia and China had probably no clue. So I think it was India who took the leadership of the de-dollarization process altogether, and which is why today we have the first mover advantage, because right now the UPI, the RuPay card, and the technology which is developing this, alternate to the SWIFT payment mechanism, it's the Indian technology which is spreading. All right, it's not Chinese technology. Nobody is talking about the electronic yuan, e-yuan. Nobody is talking about the Russian Mir payment system. Most of the world is talking about the Indian payment systems, which is UPI and the RuPay card. And there are now 35 nations lining up for it, which means that it is true that it's India who started de-dollarization. It's not Russia and China. Russia and China were just I would say consent on accumulating gold and silver. That was a common thing among all the nations, not just Russia, China, and India, that you need to accumulate gold and silver as precious metals in central banks' reserves to replace the US dollar. But the first step, which is cutting out all the multilateral trade deals, which involves more than two nations with United States dollar, I think that was an Indian step. So this entire leadership of de-dollarization is Indian. It's not Russian or Chinese. You need to understand that when the fish is entering the trap, you're not going to stop the fish, right? So it's not just about Google or Microsoft. We have Airbus, we have Boeing, we have Raytheon, we have General Electric, right? General Atomics. All these United States biggies, companies, are not just tying up. To my knowledge and my understanding of geopolitics, these companies are actually going to settle in India by the end of this decade. And it makes sense in terms, not just in terms of profits of business, but it makes sense in every perspective, in terms of, you say, the value systems between the population of the two countries, the kind of cooperation which is possible between the population of two countries and the government going down, one decade down. I think looking at all of that, these companies are very much interested. I was just looking at a new policy wherein Oxford, Harvard, all these big Ivy League colleges are now to be allowed opening up campuses, not just being allowed to opening up campuses in India, but they are also being allowed to have their own system of assessments for exams and a freedom to issue certificates in terms of courses, certificates and degrees in terms of courses equivalent to the Indian education system. So I look at it as a lot of cream American knowledge systems shifting towards India. shifting and going to settle in India by the end of this decade. And this was very obvious because India has always been the hub of education, and this is not something new. I mean, ancient India had this university campuses in the mandirs, in the temple campuses, where the foreign students would die in their way to travel to take to seek admission, getting filtered out and getting admission in in Indian universities. So this is not something which is what we are seeing as new, but this is where it is heading towards. Certainly heading towards. There's no doubt about it. None of the American or the Western, uh, would I say, a cream institute of repute would have that kind of reception or that kind of acceptability in any other geography other than Indian. Which is, and this is not just about acceptability, it's also about what kind of future collaboration that is possible along with the Indian populace, which is the youngest population in the world right now. I mean, the next 3 decades, we are going to become the richest economy in the world. We are going to sit back on the throne, as I say, 2047 is our year. We are going to sit back on the throne which always belonged to us. For 1700 years, it had been the case. So, who will not be interested when, especially when, you see the Western countries are aging. They do not have younger working population anymore. So, where are they going to invest? It's obviously India.